I was asked recently how I produced this Toon shader effect, which I did for a student film a couple of years back. It's a very easy thing to do, it's not too complicated. Essentially, it's a two-toned ramp shader that follows the light angle. So to demonstrate in the viewport here, then we have a simple spotlight, and essentially just the ramp shader will react to wherever the light hits. So one colour will be produced for like the lighter side of it, and vice versa. There'll be another colour produced for where the light isn't hitting. The shader's colour, the brightness of it will also be affected by the brightness of the light, so that is one thing to keep in mind as well. So to start, I've created a blank scene to demonstrate it, so just for it's completely from scratch. First I'm going to create a helix, just you can use any piece of geometry just as an example. I've chosen the helix as it's just a nice piece for the shader to wrap around. So we bump into a hyper shade, you can see there's nothing in there, nothing is completely new. If you look in the Toon tab, so in the Maya tabs at the top there should be a Toon one. We want the two-tone light angle shader, that's one we're going to be working with. There are other Toon shaders available, by all means experiment with other ones. This is just the one that I like to use because it gave the result I liked. So secondly, we're going to create a light. You need a light in your scene. If you haven't got a light, then nothing will show up. So it's very, very important to have a light and understand that it's pointed at the object, and also that the light has attributes that you would like. So the cone angle, if it happens to be a spotlight. Also the intensity does affect the shader as well, so you also may want to keep an eye on that, as it's very easy to blow out the shader or equally underexpose it, so it'll appear like it's not doing anything. Okay, cool. Now let's jump over to the render view. I generally like to do it in mental ray, I just find it gives it a bit of a nicer look. The quality is a bit low, so in the render settings we can pump it up to production quality, just because we're not worried about render times as it is, and it's just nicer to see how it looks well. Okay, let's minimize it so we can see what we're working with here. Lovely. Now I'm going to look at the some of the attributes inside the light angled shader. Okay, first we're going to look at the fall off. So if you move the bar, as you can see, that will change that how much of the light is affected by the light in the dark, like the ratio of it. So the more darkness there is in the bar, the more darkness there'll be in the shader, as you can see here. And if it goes the other way, it would go the other way. Okay, cool. So next we're going to look at colour. It's a bit of a self-explanatory thing. If you change the colour of each of the sides, it will change like the output colour. It doesn't necessarily have to be like light and dark. You can create some nice sort of effects with the light and dark, but equally you could use like a colour and a saturation, or equally you can use opposing colours, like complementary colours, to create various effects. It's really up to you how you use it. It's quite a nice shader in that way. You can create a lot of things that are quite visually appealing, so that part's completely up to you. Okay, so that's basically the gist of the shader. There are a lot more attributes to it. If you scroll down, there's like you can alter the transparency, the incandescence, the specular colours. You can make them glow. There's shadows. I mean, there's a lot more to the shader. However, a lot of these attributes are mimicked within other Maya shaders, such as Lamberts or Blins. So I don't really want to sit here and go through each of them individually. I don't think, if you want to find out more about them, tweaking is just a great way of learning about them visually. Or just if you Google a term, there's plenty of information out there on how to do things. So that in mind, that's the basics gist of how the shader works. Okay, so back in Maya, essentially I've repeated the process for each body part or each separate colour system, like colour scheme that I want. It's very easy to do. All you got to do is select the faces that you want to have a certain colour for, and just create a new material for that. You can see as I'm selecting different shaders here, different parts of the body have a selection on them. I just want to quickly demonstrate the lighting as well, as something that can get overlooked. Obviously, as you increase the intensity, you can see here all the colours will increase, and obviously as you decrease it, like they will decrease. It seems obvious, but it's something that does get overlooked. Okay, cool. As a final thought, I'd like to delve a little bit into texturing. This is very simple if you just want a block colour. However, let's say you want to put like a Hawaiian t-shirt, or you want to put some kind of like texture on it, you will have to go a little bit further. Okay, so here we are inside of Photoshop. This is the UV layout for the model. It's not a very good example of a UV layout. I made it a very, very long time ago. But as an example's sake, this is it. And essentially we are going to create a light and a dark version of the texture we want. So I've created like a very simple Hawaiian, like generic Hawaiian texture that's going to go over the t-shirt. You can see here, and essentially we have a light and a dark version. I could go ahead and create like a color pattern or like colors for the rest of the body, so that we only have to use one shader when we bring it back into Maya. But as this is just an example, I've just stuck to the texture t-shirt information so you can realize how to do it. And this is just my version of how I do it. There's probably other ways, but this is a way that works for me. So you have a light version here, and then also a dark version, just saved off as another layer. And basically, once you have these two bits of information, you can just save them off. I just save them off as like light and dark as TGAs, obviously with the UV lines hidden, and then that will give you the information you need to then plug the texture back into Maya into the surface shaders, which should work fine. Okay, so back in Maya, if we go into the hypershade that's up here, if we select the t-shirt Toon shader, get out this graph network, see there's got no connections plugged in at the moment. We can change that. The black and white tab next to selected color, we can use it to plug in a file. First one's the dark one, so we're going to plug in, pre-saved off the dark t-shirt, and you can see it appear there and plugged in. Then we'll repeat the process for the light one, so create another file node for it. It should appear soon. Like I previously said, we could use this to texture the entire character with just one shader, so that's also another option, depending on how you like to do things. But you can also just separate them out if you like. And here we go. So if we bring this up a little bit bigger, you can see that we now have a pattern that follows the surface, the Toon shading effect, and matches the rest of the character. So I'll just do it from another angle so you can see it better. There we go. So here we have, it's not the best wrapped texture, but the principle behind it, hopefully you can see that's how you can do it. So I hope you enjoyed this, and see you next time.